Welcome to Candidate on the Clock, sponsored by the Newton County Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Lanier Sims. Today we're joined by Jessica Fore, that is running for the U.S. House of Representatives, District 10. Ms. Fore, could you tell us a little bit more about you?
Sure. Well, I'm Georgia born and raised. I'm from Macon originally, and I've been living in Athens, Georgia, pretty much since I went there for college, with the exception of a couple of years, so about 23 years total. I'm a first-time politician. I can't say I'm a non-politician since I have declared candidacy now. I work in music. I work in local real estate. I'm a church worship leader, primarily in the United Methodist Church, and I've been involved in business and community service throughout District 10. Even though I live in Athens, I travel a lot for work, and I travel a lot for church music. And I've done work with abuse victim advocacy and environmental activism, addiction recovery centers, a lot of different things in at least 14 of the 18 counties throughout Georgia District 10. And it's good to be back here in Newton County. I've had quite a few formative experiences at the FFA, FHA camp.
Yep.
Sometimes sneaking out to go to the Waffle House and trying not to get caught. So.
Well, good. Thank you. As you know, we had citizens to submit questions for your particular race in the district. So we're just going to jump into some of those questions. First question, what are your thoughts, or how are you planning to address climate change?
I'm really glad you asked about that, because that's been a passion of mine for a long time. I think that we need to be looking at it from an economic development perspective and finding sort of win-win solutions that create new jobs and that give companies an opportunity to prosper and help the middle class prosper by being involved in environmental solutions. And so a really good example of that's local is, I was just chatting upstairs about the Rivian plant that's coming and the batteries that are going to be generated to help make electric cars. That's coming right here to Morgan and Walton counties, and it's going to create, I believe, 10,000 jobs locally. And so that's a really good opportunity for not just environmentally friendly products to get on the market, but business development as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Question number 2, what provisions, if any, do you or would you support in the Build Back Better bill that's currently stalled in Congress?
Well, the thing that I appreciate about Build Back Better is its focus on working families, expanding the child tax credit, making sure that regular middle class folks have a little bit easier time making ends meet and making life work. And I also appreciate that it's asking billionaires and corporations to pay their fair share in taxes. And so I think that's definitely something that we need to do. We need to be bringing in a fair amount of revenue from the top, paying similar percentages to what middle class people have to pay.
Thank you. Our next question, what would be your plans to bring federal funds back to Newton County to help make Newton County a better place to live, work, and play?
Yeah. So the main thing that I want to do is have a listening posture towards local citizens and their concerns. And so when I have an opportunity to work on a specific project, to be able to allocate federal funds to local projects, that's something that's definitely going to be a priority for me as your next Congresswoman.
Okay, thank you. So our next question, what's your thoughts or do you support term limits in Congress?
I do support term limits in Congress. I think that we need to have government by regular concerned citizens and not career politicians. That's one of the reasons that I'm running as somebody that's never been in politics before, but has experience getting things done and speaking truth to power. And I've been involved with facing big church bureaucracies in the course of doing domestic violence victim advocacy. That's probably the first thing that comes up if anybody Googles me, more so than politics. So I do support term limits, and I support things like ranked choice voting and other provisions that help us get better people into office, stop having to do the lesser of two evils, political gamesmanship that a lot of us think about when we're voting. And then, once you're in office, you don't stay there for the rest of your life. You're not, a 50-year congressperson that just won't go and make room for new folks.
Okay, thank you. Next question gets into a little bit of jobs at kind of gets into the economy. At what point do you think the federal government should implement wage and price controls to slow down the increasing inflation?
So we've got an issue right now where we're calling something inflation that really has a lot to do with deliberate price gouging by corporations, and because there's not enough regulation on what's happening. The way that I look at that is, first of all, I've proposed a multi-tier top marginal tax rate system. So in the conversation about top marginal tax rates, there's Democrats that say, well, they used to be 94% under Eisenhower, and Republicans say, well, but when you cut the tax rates on billionaires and corporations, they make jobs for everybody and everything gets better, and so on and so forth. I would like to predicate lower tax rates on those results. So if you want to get the lowest tax rate as a corporation or as a billionaire with a controlling interest in a corporation, then you've got to show us the domestic living wage jobs. And otherwise you're going to be paying a little more revenue. I'd like to see some other things happen, like if we've got price gouging on the price of gasoline is one good example of where we've been experiencing inflation lately. We've seen the price per barrel fluctuate a little bit, but we've seen the prices per gallon increase disproportionate to the price of a barrel of gas. And that's the kind of thing where some of those tax incentives could be a way of not necessarily regulating, but motivating companies to have fair price structures. I also think that on the subject of wages, there's a lot of conversation about a $15 minimum wage. I don't think a one-size-fits-all solution is going to work very well. One, because $15 isn't a living wage in most of the country. We need living wages that are tied to local housing costs, so that people who are working full-time, adults, can afford a place to live. That should be viewed as a basic human right. But at the same time, I sympathize with the concerns of business owners who say, well, I'm teaching a 16-year-old how to get off of their phone and wash a dish. This is somebody that's working for me after school, and I don't want to pay $20 an hour to teach a teenager how to wash a dish. What can we do? So I would support a student wage for people, students in their first job that are living with their parents, for them to be able to learn how to hold down a job, for business owners to be able to scale their business model by utilizing student labor, but not to use that as an excuse for creating sub-living wage jobs for adults.
Okay, thank you. Now, our next question is a little different than your typical, I think, political question. So, would you support a know your customer law requiring social media companies to verify the identity of users the same way that financial institutions do?
I think that's a pretty good idea with the amount of troll bots and disinformation that's been put onto the internet lately. I think we do have a responsibility to have verified accounts to some extent. I know that I'm certainly having to do that as somebody running for office, creating a business account on Facebook. If you want to go and advertise and put out political messages, they want to know that you're legitimate and that you're not somebody who's trying to influence elections by automating something and doing something dishonest.
Thank you. Our last question: what are your legislative goals, and how would that impact the counties in your district?
My main legislative goal is the most foundational existential thing that we're all dealing with right now in Georgia 10, and the state of Georgia is at the center of the national conversation, and that is voting rights. Making sure that people who have the legal right to vote are able to do that they're able to do it as conveniently as possible, that they are not having to jump through a bunch of hoops where you make it inconvenient and then maybe somebody that's got pressures in their life doesn't manage to do it, doesn't manage to get counted the same way as others might. One of the main precipitating issues that caused me to declare candidacy for Congress is that my sitting Congressman Jody Hice called the January 6th insurrection our 1776 moment and then voted to throw away my vote. And so I started looking around at who else was running for District 10 on the Democratic side, whose campaign could I support, and who could I actually help get elected, because we have had a situation for the last many election cycles where we're in a red district and the Democrats have not run a candidate with a path to victory in the general election. Now, our partisan split has gone from Republicans being up by 28 to Republicans being up by 15 points, so it's narrowing a little bit, but we need somebody who can make up a 15-point gap in order to, because what's at stake is voting rights. What's at stake is the basic stability of our democratic republic. And so, so I looked around for who I could support, and I didn't see anybody with a path to victory. And I mostly saw people that don't live in the district. And so I'm stepping up as a previously non-politician, first-time politician, person who lives here who's running to win, so that we can make sure that everybody can vote, so that we can make sure that we stabilize our democratic system, so that we can get abusers of power out of positions of public trust.
Thank you. All right, and thank you for answering all the top questions submitted by our citizens. At this time, can you close us out with any further information you'd like the voters to know about yourself or your campaign, and how they can best contact you?
Yes, so you can find me on my website, which is my name, Jessica Fore, F-O-R-E, GA.com. So JESSICA-FOREGA.com. And then that'll also link to my Twitter and my Facebook and all that good stuff. Like I said earlier, if you Google me, probably the first thing that's going to come up is my work with abuse victim advocacy in religious settings, especially in the Presbyterian Church in America. I escalated a case involving injustice surrounding abuse and domestic violence to the floor of a national denomination's General Assembly. I was fought by bureaucracy all of the way, and in the course of doing that over the course of several years, many other women came forward having had very similar experiences, and so I started a national movement that resulted in the appointment of a committee that's dealing with the issue of abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, and sexual harassment on a national level. So I am able to speak truth to power. I am able to get initiatives through hostile bureaucracies, and I'm going to bring that same bravery and can-do attitude to bear as your next Congresswoman. I'm also the only Democrat that's been showing up to confront Republicans. We've had one bipartisan forum for the Georgia Farm Bureau, and I stood up and took on 9 Republican men all by myself. Crashed Jody Hice's rally, called him out for lying about election fraud. And so, look, I'm going to build a large enough tent that lots of us with different opinions on things can come on board and come together to unite our country and to stabilize our democracy. And so, if you're a disaffected conservative, if you're an evangelical Christian that usually votes Republican, man, I'm a fiscally responsible Methodist worship leader from Macon, and I am here to give you an alternative to the authoritarianism that we're seeing, coming from a significant part of the right wing right now. So I would appreciate your vote, appreciate your support. Come out and vote May 24th. Thank you.